You are Locked On Bulls Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Chicago on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, the Chicago Bulls lose 114-95, move to 1-2 on this short season. An ugly, ugly basketball game for the Chicago Bulls in their home opener. It was Brick City. Billy Donovan missing in action, it felt like most this game. Who needs to step up the most throughout the course of the season and really just after his recent performances? We got one guy to key on, plus some random thoughts from this game, from the broadcast of the halftime show. We're getting all of it today here on the Locked On Bulls Postcast on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Welcome in. My name's Joe George. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Joe George Radio. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight on this Saturday night. Appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, just a reminder, we are, or for the first time you're hearing this, we'll be doing live postcast shows for the Bulls, hopefully a lot better ones than this one. The Cubs, when baseball season gets back around, Notre Dame fighting Irish. We knocked one out earlier today, so if you're a Notre Dame fan, hit the live spots, the live channel there on YouTube, and you can watch my recap of the Notre Dame Navy game. And we'll be live for the first time for Bears Commanders tomorrow after Caleb Williams, and hopefully the Bears move to 5-2 on the season. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Joe George Radio. Let's get into what happened in tonight's Bulls 114-95 loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was just bad basketball in this one. The Bulls, they basically gave me the ice bucket challenge. I feel like we're throwing it back here a little bit to that. Honestly, I was so excited after last night's game that it felt like the Bulls really were, maybe there was something to this season. It doesn't mean it's all bad right away, but through the first two games, you played 6.5 really good quarters. Quarter and a half in that first game of the season was a disaster. And then tonight was just absolutely atrocious basketball, basically from start to finish. It showed how much of a team, Jekyll and Hyde team, the Bulls are really going to be this season. We have a 3-game sample size here, right? In 2 games, you can't shoot a 3 to save your life. You can't stop turning the ball over to save your life. And you just lose badly in these games. In the other game, your offense was electric. You're hitting everything. And of course you won. They didn't turn the ball over much in Friday night's game. That to me is the biggest, the long-term implications of what we're seeing right now through the Bulls through 3 games. Is if you stop turning the ball over, the Bulls have a chance to be competitive. Because even in the first half is fascinating for the Bulls. It shows you how different these teams are, the Thunder and the Bulls, and where they're going and what they can be. Both teams were absolutely atrocious in this game from the 3-point line in the first half. The Chicago Bulls shot 5 of 26 from 3 in the first half. That's very, very bad. That's why you're losing by 20. And you look at the box score and go, oh, the Oklahoma City Thunder, they shot 5 for 22 from the 3-point line in the first half. So you got 2 teams only making 5 threes, shooting over 20 of them, but one team has a 20-point lead. And at one point, the Bulls had it within like 3 in the second quarter. And then the Thunder just absolutely ran away with this thing and took the Bulls completely out of this game in the second quarter. I don't know how you have 2 teams that shoot the same from 3 and one has a 20-point lead. The answer? Well, the Bulls, after having success in this game, in the first game at times, a lot in the second game where they were attacking the basket and they were going to the rim and Zach LaVine was playing a lot in the post, they just abandoned it in this game. And they were just bricking threes nonstop. And Vooch was basically MIA for most of his half, very similar to the first game of the season, where it just felt like the players on the court were making an active choice to not pass him the ball. And I know Chet Holmgren he's got some length, he can jump, he's got athleticism, he still looks like a twig next to Nikola Vucevic. Give him the ball, let him work in the post, because when things were starting to come back towards the Bulls' favor in the end of the first quarter and into the second quarter, they were playing through Vooch. They weren't taking as many threes. But the turnovers, again, in this game, just like the 3-point shooting, a nightmare. 26 turnovers. If they're going to do this 2 out of 3 games, they're going to lead the league by a wide margin in turnovers this season. This isn't something I expect to see from the Detroit Pistons, one of the worst teams in the league. It is just reckless abandon with the basketball. And there just seems to be no rhyme or reason for a lot of it. Josh Giddey is, I thought he had a fine game, didn't get that revenge game. Alex Caruso didn't really either. So Josh Giddey, one of the things that he does that the Bulls clearly just are totally unprepared for is being anytime creative with the basketball. He's trying to do these little dink dunk passes that are, just to try to get the ball to someone, and they're just missing the ball. They're just letting it hit off their hands like they've never seen a basketball in their lives. So some of the Josh Giddey stuff's just not working. But when you look at the first half, because that's all that really matters in this game, when you're down by 20 and when you're down by 20, it doesn't matter what happened in the second half if you don't make a run. Like, that's the end. That was the end of the basketball game. We could have done this show an hour ago, to be honest with you. I could have told you how it was going to end. They weren't going to come back. You don't shoot that poorly, and so does your opponent, and then expect them to shoot the same and you fix it when you're not the better basketball team. The Thunder are a championship level team, but like I said a couple minutes ago here, I just felt excited after last night's game, after the first half of the Pelicans game, and all that kind of feels like I just got a cold bucket of water dumped on my head, reality check of what the Bulls are going to be. I will probably reference this the rest of the season because it will not be the only time we hear it, but the Bulls, the players, the local media, the guys that work for the team, when you could hear them, we'll get to that, they are the ones that are saying this team's going to be better than we thought it was, than the outside media thought it was going to be, than the Vegas number thought it was going to be. Well, last night was a victory in their favor. Tonight's a victory on the other side of it. That they're just not capable of coming back from a 20-point deficit. I mean, it just felt like this game was over at halftime. So tough game. Zach LaVine doesn't score in the first half. Lonzo Ball, he's going to be an interesting guy just to watch. I was excited to see him tonight. Part of, it's excitement, it's intrigue. It's just, what does he look like on a night in and night out basis, since he's not going to play in every single game. Still coming back, obviously, from these injuries. It's been, it had been 1,000+ days since he had played a basketball game. But his jump shot looked pretty weak for the most part. Don't think he hit one in tonight's game either. And there's a couple other guys in this game that just left a lot to be desired. And what you just expect more. And, one thing to nitpick here before we really get into Billy Donovan about the second half of the game, can you bring in the other guys in earlier? Like if you're going to lose this game, can you give Modest more minutes? Can we see what this kid can actually do? Can we see what he's like out there on the court? Because I just wanted more from him. And on nights like this, where they're not going to play good basketball, at least you can give Bulls fans, try to give us some hope of what, the future of the Chicago Bulls organization can look like by putting Modest on the court and letting him have just a couple minutes more than he got tonight to show the skill set, the reason why he was a lottery pick, the local kid. Like, let him get his reps in more at, the first home game of the season. It kind of stings a little bit. First home game of the season, 40th anniversary of Michael Jordan's debut with the Chicago Bulls, and they come out with this performance. It just was not positive. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're watching here or listening on the audio channel. Head over to the YouTube channel. We'll be live tomorrow as well after the Bears-Commanders game. But coming up next, one guy felt like he was on a milk carton tonight. That was the head coach, Billy Donovan. We'll talk about him next and what's going on and what he can do better as a coach. It's very evident in this game here on the Locked On Bulls postcast on the Locked On Chicago YouTube channel. PrizePicks. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 picks. Sign up today and join over 10 million users. When you sign up today, you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's totally guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds. This week on PrizePicks, looking at the football board, tried some basketball tonight. Lonzo, more than a half a three, didn't get that done for my lineup tonight. But for this weekend on the football board, I'm looking at Caleb Williams, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns against the Commanders. Lamar Jackson, more than a half a passing touchdown in his game. And then both Derrick Henry and Bijan Robinson, so both have more than half of a rushing plus receiving touchdown in their respective games. Download the app today and use Locked On NBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, Billy Donovan, where are you at, man? Where are you at, Billy Donovan? Like, what are you doing during the game? I have so many questions about Billy Donovan. There's a reason why he's probably going to be the first coach fired this season. And Jerry Reinsdorf's kind of cheap, so maybe he won't actually do that. But Billy Donovan, with a young team that is just struggling on a night like tonight, I just don't understand what he is actually doing as the head coach of this basketball team. There was a couple moments specifically. The first one is a nitpick for me that I don't like. Patrick Williams steps out of bounds and we'll go to take a three, so they blow it dead. The next possession, Josh Giddey is fighting for a ball on the ground, and I know you want to save your timeouts in the second half. It is the first half of the game. It is a close basketball game. And instead of calling a timeout to give the Bulls possession, because Josh Giddey had it the entire time, there was no chance of a tie-up. It was clearly in his hands. He's fumbling with the basketball, though. Instead of calling a timeout, Josh Giddey has to then try to just get the ball off the ground, and it's one of their 26 turnovers on the night. Where are you at, Billy? Like, what are you doing on the sidelines? Throughout the game here, the Thunder are going on runs constantly, and once again, no timeouts. In the second half, he called a little bit more. Felt like to try to slow him down. Too late. The game was over at halftime. But once again, Billy Donovan just not trying to slow down the pace. Not trying, because they want to run, right? Like they want to run. Well, the problem is when you try to run all the time and you're shooting, in the first half, 5 of 26 from the 3-point line, you have to tell them to stop. Like you have to, as the head coach of this basketball team, tell them to stop doing it. And if they don't stop, then put different guys in the lineup. But Coby White, Zach LaVine, could not hit a three the entire night. Zach LaVine ends up with 22 points, but he had no points in the first half. So you have to adjust at some point, and that is the responsibility of the coach. When you've got a young team that is playing out of control and just jacking up threes, it's 1-on-4. They're taking up a three. There's no one there to rebound. And the Thunder, it's basically another turnover. Like, it's one of my biggest pet peeves in the NBA. This is Warrior syndrome, that is, gone throughout the entire league at this point. But on a fast break, unless you're Zach LaVine, like in the first half of the first game of the season, or Coby White or Zach LaVine in the second game of the season, you should never, ever, ever just pull up for a three and take it. Because as soon as you do, you are just giving the Thunder the ball. And when they can't hit a shot either, instead of giving yourself a lead, you are just giving away possessions constantly. I don't know why players do it. I know they want to get their shots up, but someone has to step in and tell them to just slow it down and give the ball to Nikola Vucevic and let it run through him. Also, with Josh Giddey and Lonzo Ball on the court, we've seen very clearly through 3 games that whenever a player just cuts to the basket hard, that the way defense is played in the NBA today, that they are open for bounce passes attacking the rim. They don't do that enough. And when they're struggling like this, they need to start doing it more often. So they just completely, the positive things that come in game 2, they completely go away from them in game 3. And that to me is what you see is a poorly coached basketball team. And that's what it felt like the Bulls were tonight. Billy Donovan's not the worst coach in the world. He has had a lot of unfortunate roster spots, roster situations with the Bulls. But I was just frustrated watching this game and wanted Billy to just try to stop the bleeding a little bit more. And then I have one major request from Billy Donovan. I don't know what they were doing in training camp. I don't know how much time they spent on the zone, but please stop. Please stop. Game 1, game 3, they roll out the zone, and these guys don't know how to run it. Stacey King is just crushing them on the broadcast, telling them that they're too high, that they're too spread out, that they don't know how to run a zone effectively. We don't see teams run zone that often in the NBA. We saw the Thunder running it a little bit tonight. The Bulls can't run it. It's been a disaster both times they did it. I mean, that's really when the Pelicans game got out of hand, and I know they tried to, change it up in this game too to maybe give them some kind of confusion. But when you have an MVP player in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on one side of the court, Chet Holmgren there, you've got vets on this team, even though they're super young, but you got Alex Caruso out there. it's just not going to work. And it's just a waste of time. That find something else to try, Billy. I appreciate this one, A, for effort both times to implement the zone, to try to change up the defense on the opposing team, but neither time it worked effectively. And I just don't want to see it again. Try half court pressure, full court pressure, do something else different. But either in the limited practice time you have, because that's one thing that's tough with the NBA now, is they don't practice a ton, especially when you got things like back-to-backs going on. But even when there's not, they just don't practice a lot. So I guess you can try to practice the 2-3 zone more frequently and try to make it more effective for you this season. But I would, through 3 games, my request for Billy Donovan would be to just never, ever, ever run the zone again, because I just don't think that the Bulls players are really capable or understanding or committed to what it takes to run that effectively. So tough night for the team, for the coach, all around, just an all bad night. I was sitting here before the show and just as the fourth quarter is kind of unwinding, had to have it on League Pass, watching, trying to do some dishes, multitask a little bit, racking my brains for positives. I got nothing for you besides Zach LaVine at 22 or whatever ended up being in the second half after going scoreless in the first half. Oh, there was the cool montage from Michael Jordan. That was a positive in today's game, but just not a lot of good things happened for the Chicago Bulls against the Oklahoma City Thunder as they lose 114-95. There is one player specifically that I want to talk about a little bit tonight that he's out there, and he's not Billy Donovan on a milk carton, because we're seeing the negative impact of him, and it's not something I expect to continue. But one thing with this team, that there are young players still that we will ask them at times, and the Bulls will ask them at times to step up in a major way. So I got one player we're going to focus in on a little bit when we get back here on the Locked On Bulls postcast. My name's Joe George. Listen to us here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel.
All right, Bulls fans, you guys know FanDuel is one of the most consistent sponsors we have here over at Locked On, and you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. It just streamlines the process and makes it so much easier on you that you can do everything all on one page. You can get your analysis, get your stats, get your live play-by-play. You can get everything that you need to make an informed bet on the same page where you place your bets. That just makes everything easier on you. Not a lot of betting sites are offering that, and FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook, is offering you that. Plus, on top of that, you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. No ifs, ands, or buts about it when you place your first $5 bet. All you got to do for that is go over to FanDuel.com. Again, that's FanDuel.com to get $200 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet. Tell them, hey, he sent you.
All right, let's talk about this. The guys we need to step up the most. I got 2 for you. We're going to quickly hit on Patrick Williams here a little bit. Another tough night, 1 for 8. Look, I've been kind of down on Patrick for quite a while now. He is not someone that I thought would be still here today. I thought he would have been moved at the deadline, but the Bulls are obviously kind of a strange organization with trades. They don't really make them. They just kind of stick with what they've got and hope for the best that things are going to turn around, but we're just not seeing that from him. He's 1 for 8 tonight from the floor. The 3-point shots not really working. Another guy that Billy Donovan just tap him on the shoulder and say, hey man, this is not something that you're doing effectively. I know they want it to be part of his game, but I'm just not sure it's quite ever going to be there enough. I mean, when you've got guys like Nikola Vucevic who are going 7 for 12, 2 for 2 from the 3-point line with 13 rebounds, but then you have Patrick who's Williams who's 1 for 8 from the field, 1 for 4 from the 3-point line. It just makes things more challenging for this team. The other guy I want to focus in, I'm not going to pick on Lonzo, even though he's 1 for 6 tonight, 1 for 5 and 3. He's going to get his shot going. Hopefully these back-to-backs will just be interesting to see. I guess it's just every game, what it looks like for him. I feel like it's going to be an adventure all season. One guy I'm going to pick on here a little bit, and it's because this is a player that there are certain guys on the Bulls that when I watch them play, I want to hold them to a higher standard. I want to say, okay, this is someone that I believe in for the future of the Bulls, not as a championship level player, but as a playoff level player that is a good rotational guy. We talked a lot about Coby White, in the first show. Obviously not his best night, but for tonight and what we've seen through 3 games, because it's a 3-game sample size of these problems, it's Io. Io is struggling right now. He was 1 for 9 tonight from the 3-point line. He is now 1 for 16 on the season from 3, and he keeps just jacking them up. But if the Bulls are not going to be this team where one night you're off incredible on offense and it's only built on the strength of Vooch and LaVine and Coby White, if you're going to be a more consistent basketball team, Io is a guy that if he's going to be taking all those threes, he's got to step up 2.0. Tony Snell 2.0 from the chat here. That's tough. That is a tough viewpoint of what Io could be. I don't know if his defense is good enough to be Tony Snell 2.0. I also just don't think his jump shots as broke looking as Tony Snell was. But I get the comp. I think it is fair. But man, just if he's gonna be that kind of 6th man on this team, 24 minutes tonight, you need him to be a lot more consistent. That's not even consistent. You just need him to make some shots, or just attack the paint more. Because he can. We saw, he can go after the paint and he can draw some fouls, and you need to see more of that from him on a consistent basis. So he's definitely been, through 3 games, one of the guys that I would highlight as a bummer for me for the Bulls. I mean, he ends up with 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 points. So to the Tony Snell point, doing a little bit of everything besides scoring. That is a good thing for Io, but just need him to start putting the ball in the hoop. And one guy too, this is more back to the Billy Donovan thing, honestly. If you were listening last night to the show, I admitted that I think I'm falling in love as a basketball fan with Jalen Smith. Only took 2 threes tonight. That's someone that, I would have liked to see more from him in this game as well, that as this offense is struggling pretty consistently throughout the game, that he's someone that I would have tried to rely on and use to, try to break some of those struggles in this game. I'm curious what, more of him and Vooch, if there's, a possibility of what that could look like. I am surprised that, with the exception of when Lonzo wasn't out there in the second game, since he's not playing on back-to-backs, I did expect to see more, I don't know if it's creativity, but more randomness with the lineup and the sub patterns that we would see from this core group of guys with Billy Donovan. I thought he would just try to do a couple different things for this team. I mean, THT, Taylor Horton Tucker, made this team for a reason out of camp. That is a guy that in the league has put up buckets before. So I wonder if we're nearing a time where we could even see him get a couple more minutes, not just in total garbage time in this game. Just try to do some things a little bit differently. I still think we also are headed towards the Modest Buzelis G League Windy City Bulls stint here. I don't know if they're going to do. I think I promised myself I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to bring up Bronny. I know the Lakers with Bronny are going to be sending him up and down this season so he can hang out with his dad, but also try to learn something about playing basketball in the G League instead of just, subbing in with his dad the first game of the season. But maybe Buzelis is doing something similar soon where, he can go a little bit up and down, with the Bulls. Maybe he's with the Bulls for home games, with the Windy City Bulls when they go on the road, or for long road stretches. Just getting him. I'd rather him get more minutes down there. And if he's not going to play up top, at least I'll play 7 minutes tonight. If he's not going to play more, I'd rather him just go down for a little bit and work on his development. And then when he comes back up, try to make him more essential part of this roster and of this rotation. Last thing here today that we got to hit on, just because this was not a good game. So I've decided that while watching this game, because, well, a lot of you can't watch the game, I know, in Chicago still. I'm watching the game via League Pass. So this is my first time being invested in League Pass. It's an interesting experience because they don't go to commercial. They just pop into random stadium things. But you get halftime shows. You get the pregame stuff. So the reason why we're doing this on nights where it's this ugly, we're going to do some random thoughts here at the end of the show about the Bulls game today. Well, if you didn't know, you can now watch them on Fubo, but hopefully you can hear them, because what was that when you couldn't hear the broadcast? Like, also, they just vanished. They just vanished for like a half a quarter. No idea what's going on. And right here on the money, I got to bring up my guy Zach again, because that was my other random thought from this game. Red Panda still kicking. Had no idea that Red Panda was still doing halftime shows. So I got to watch the full thing, but I have to ask, washed? I don't know. Like, she did that trick where she's got 5 bowls, I think it was, and was trying to flip them all up at one time. Took her 4 tries. Now, the harder one, she got on the first try, but Red Panda is still a thing. Was not aware that was still happening in the NBA today. So good for her. And that will end our random thoughts on today's Bulls game, as they gave us not a lot to root for in their 114-95 loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Thank you for listening on the audio channel for Locked On Bulls. If you haven't yet, subscribe to that as well. Wherever you get your podcast, just go in, subscribe. They do a great job during the week, dropping a daily podcast about the Bulls. So you get daily Bulls content from them, as well as the postcast from me after every single Bulls game. Same for all the channels, the Bears, the Bulls, the Cubs, the White Sox, if you're interested. They'll be in their offseason schedule, so doing it a little bit differently. I think it's only 3 days a week. And then for the Irish as well. We'll be back tomorrow here on the channel on Locked On Sports Chicago, doing a postcast for Caleb Williams versus the Washington Commanders, and hopefully another Bears victory on the season. You can find me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at Joe George Radio. Thanks for hanging out with us, whether it's here on YouTube or listening via audio. We will talk to you tomorrow for the Bears game. Peace.